Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to It's Rainmaking Time. This is Kim Greenhouse. It gives me great pleasure to invite back John Lear, who is a retired airline captain and former CIA contract pilot with over 19,000 hours of flight time, over 11,000 in command of 3 or 4 engine jet transports, and has flown over 100 different types of aircraft in 60 different countries around the world. He retired in 2001 after more than 40 years of commercial flying. He's also the son of Learjet inventor Bill Lear, and John holds more FAA airman certificates than any other FAA certificate airman. This includes the Airline Transport Pilot Certificate with 23 type ratings, flight instructor, flight engineer, flight navigator, ground instructor, aircraft dispatcher, control tower operator, parachute rigger, and mechanic, rated for both airframe and power plant. He flew for the CIA in Southeast Asia. Between 1972 and 1973, he logged 560 missions, of which over half were combat. He also flew contract missions in Eastern Europe, the Middle East, and Africa between 1977 and 1982. And during the last 17 years of his career, John has worked for several passenger and cargo airlines as a captain, check airman, and instructor, and he was certificated by the FAA as a North Atlantic Navigation Check Airman. He has extensive experience as a command pilot and instructor in the Boeing 707, Douglas DC-8, and Lockheed L-1011. John happens to hold 17 world records, including speed around the world in a Learjet Model 24 set in 1966, and was presented the PATCO, Professional Air Traffic Controllers Association Award for Outstanding Airmanship in 1968. He's also a father of 4 children, 4 grandchildren, and lives with his wife of 39 years in Las Vegas. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome John Lear back to It's Rainmaking Time. Good morning.
Morning, Kim.
I invited you back. There's so much to discuss, and even after our interview, I went and listened to it again and again and again. And I put myself in the position of not the interviewer, not the person in dialogue with you formally, but the people that are listening. And I have questions and also new areas of discussion to open up with you. Thank you for being here again.
Great.
In the first interview, you spoke very definitively about 9/11, about your experience flying, and what really is in the realm of reality relative to what a pilot could do in those type of airplanes. And I listened very carefully. I also listened to you talk about the advanced holographic technology and how it could be used in this type of an event. And then I looked at the patents, and I went back to your site and saw that you had laid out very carefully the detail that this has been around for a long time. So I could accept that. There's a couple of things that came to my mind, though, that were difficult to accept, and I wanted to talk to you about the people that called in, saying goodbye to their family members, supposedly called in from these airplanes. How were these voices calling in their family members? That's the part I don't get.
Those were all fake calls. None of those calls actually happened.
You mean family members really didn't get calls?
No. The one where they made the movie out of it, Todd Beamer says, "Let's roll." That was all fake.
What about his wife? Wasn't she the one that said that happened?
He was with her, and they don't hit her too hard on what the truth is. They just go on, and she still thinks it was him. But you can't get away from the fact that when she first picked up the phone, he says, "Hi, Mom, it's Todd Beamer, your son. You recognize me, don't you?" I mean, come on.
I didn't know that.
You have to read some of the text to realize what a massive scam it was. There were no airplanes. No airplanes crashed into the World Trade Center. No airplane crashed into the Pentagon. No airplane crashed at Shanksville. And I say that from having been a crash investigator in several instances for some of the companies I worked for. And the pictures that I see, we'll start out with Shanksville because
that was really obvious. There was nothing.
That was really obvious.
Yeah, that was like a joke.
Yeah. An airplane can't bury itself in the ground. I don't care whether it's an old mining pit or soft dirt. It just cannot happen. Then the Pentagon, I always ask people to Google April Gallop, that's Gallop. Her desk was 40 feet from the hole that the explosion made. There was no missile, there was no drone, there was no airplane, there was no A3, there was no Boeing 757. As a matter of fact, she saw nothing except she heard the explosion and some of the ceilings started to crack. So she took her 6-month-old son, who was in his car seat below her desk, and walked the 40 feet over to the hole, and she crawled up and out of the hole and walked over to the grass for triage. Triage is where doctors see what you need as far as surgery or pain or anything like that. And she wasn't too badly damaged. But she states that she smelled no fuel, no kerosene, no JP7, no gasoline. All she smelled was cordite, hand-type explosives that you'd use.
I could totally get that. I could totally get the part about Shanksville. The Pentagon, there was no plane. I could even get that. Our eyes can deceive us. But what about people hearing planes and seeing something moving? That's also part of holographic technology, even the sound?
Yes. The holograph technology can produce moving objects with sound and heat and light and noise. And I'm not saying that they were holographic projections, because out of the 41 videos that we have collected, they come in at different angles. So I don't know what happened there, but I do know that no airplane crashed into the World Trade Center, because between the two 767s, there should have been around 6 million parts, all stamped with the Parts Manufacturing Authority and a part number from Boeing. And they didn't find one single part. And they didn't find one single voice recorder or one single flight recorder. I mean, it's just impossible. It just can't happen. There's been no aviation accident where the flight recorder and voice recorder have not been found. They're built too strongly, and they're built into the tail, which is usually the last part of the airplane to get to the accident, and usually survives fairly well. The fuel blew up, and what they used is some kind of explosive that was the wrong color. It should have been more yellowish. As far as the destruction of the World Trade Center, the Navy has 24 orbiting weaponized satellites, and each has a different method of destruction. And the method they used for the World Trade Center was what they call molecular dissociation.
Is that a direct energy weapon type of technology?
Yes, it's like a direct energy, but what it does is it disassociates material into its basic components so that all you have is dust. And that's why they couldn't find very much steel or very much concrete. All they could find was dust. It was all disintegrated. They found no desks, no phones, no filing cabinets, no doors, no hinges, nothing like that. All there was about 1-story level of metal left out of a 110-story building. These weapons that we have are very, very powerful. Now, first time they tried it was at the Mura building in Oklahoma City, and that was a test run for molecular dissociation. Then the World Trade Center, they used it at full power. And what they didn't know and what they found out was the explosion or the reaction that they're causing is non-self-quenching, which means when it's done exploding, it's not done. It doesn't stop. So that's why after 10 years, you don't see any